startup that's based in Singapore, and what the differences are between there and the startup scene here in Silicon Valley. So,
also, he's your brother.
Oh yeah, he's my brother.
Just to be clear, I'm the older brother. You made me say that.
I know.
So yeah, I'm Yan Chuan. People usually just call me YC, and thank you, Joy, for inviting me to share with you guys. And those two talks before me were brilliant, like amazing talks. I don't know how I can top that, but mine's short, and it's just basically I'm just sharing what I've been doing the last 2 months, and my experience, actually mostly my experience transitioning from a nice government scientist job into being a startup, do it all co-founder, I guess. Yep. So up till a month ago, I was working at a research lab in academia. So it's a very big change for me. Like within the weekend, I went from, in Singapore at a nice office I wouldn't say in the middle of the city, but a nice office in the middle of sort of like a tech hub in Singapore, to a garage in Palo Alto. Cliche, but yeah, we do have a garage in Palo Alto that is way more expensive than it should be.
Welcome.
Yep, so yeah, very expensive. But so I'm going to share about some of my experience in this transition and what I've learned along the way. I think the first thing that came to me was there's really no time for anything. There's no time to do research or to do experiments. Like there's no time to figure out what is the right thing to do. A lot of it is just follow my gut, follow my intuition, and making decisions, on the spot. Whether to build this feature, whether we shouldn't build that, what should we do next. Basically, it's just 10 minutes of discussion and then boom, let's go do this instead. There's really no time to. It's unlike back in academia where I have like 3 months, 6 months. Go try out an idea, have a couple of students, go try out different things, and they can take their time and figure it out, make mistakes or whatnot. But right now, it's like a lot of things is just let's try to do this and then keep our fingers crossed. If it doesn't work, let's try something else, and let's try to do it.
Just a quick, just to let everyone know, why don't you tell everyone your background?
Okay, my background.
Academia and then your background. Let's start now.
Okay, I guess my background is in. So I did research. I went to school in Kanbi Melon. I did graduate school in natural language processing, which happens to be quite a hot area now. I worked in NLP research for the last 6-7 years, and then up to 8 months ago, I met this person, my co-founder, through a mutual friend. She has this idea to build something that can help doctors, to empower doctors. And so after a couple of months, we iterated on different things, and then we settled on this thing, the idea that we're building right now, which is sort of a clinical assistant in a smartphone to help doctors. So right now what we have is a chat app. It's a chat app, and there's a chatbot on it that allows doctors to ask the bot questions, and the bot will answer them. So it will be things like, say, what's the dosage of X medicine that should prescribe for 8-year-old child weighing 50 pounds, and they'll spit back, do the math, calculate it, and spit it back, things like that. Or what is the latest guidelines of hypertension, and how should we treat a geriatric patient, for example. So it's a chatbot that allows doctors quick access to this kind of medical information. And the reason why we're developing this is because it's, as mostly my co-founder, she has a lot of experience working with doctors in emerging countries, Indonesia, Philippines, Africa, Colombia, Venezuela, South America, basically. And what she found, what she realized, and what I've learned to realize recently is that a lot of these doctors are very under-supported. They are young doctors, fresh out of college, fresh out of medical school doing their residencies. But unlike in America or in Singapore, they don't get that much support. They don't have pharmacists, they don't have nurses assisting them. They are just the only doctor, only medical professional in a village. So what we're trying is to build this tool that they can use to provide them the kind of support they need, sort of like a clinical assistant. And then as a first step, this is basically let them search up information that really quickly save them time, help them check on their prescriptions, or look out for whatever drug interactions that they might have with for a particular patient, so to empower them, to empower doctors. That's the mission of our startup. So there's a little background on what I'm building right now and what I used to do. So coming back to what I've learned, what was I on? Like something about
No time.
Oh yeah, no time to do anything. Yes, no time to write science. No interest. And yeah, most of the time you learn to trust your gut. Yeah, correct. So I think the takeaway from that was like, most of the time you learn to trust your gut. It's a bit scary, I think. It's a bit scary because there's a lot of uncertainty. I mean, in research, there's a lot of uncertainty. You can run an experiment or you try and have an idea, you don't know it will work or not. But in science, in research, if you fail, it's no big deal because it's government money, you take it, you spend it, you do something, you write a paper about your failure, and then move on to the next project. There's no repercussions. But right now, if things don't work out as well, I cannot afford to feed the 3 Russian developers I have. So there's a bit more stress over there. And also to make rent for the garage. Anyway, I think following on that, a similar thing is that there's no time for me to be a perfectionist. I think I'm quite a perfectionist when it comes to my work, and in that sense, I definitely spend way too much time trying to make my code and my systems look good and nice, but time is sort of a very limited resource that I have right now, and I basically learn. I'm still trying to understand how to be less of a perfectionist and make duct tapes and hacks to get things good. Right? As you can tell, I'm like a technical co-founder, so I'm very focused on the technical side of things. So duct tape solutions, right? Basically, every day we're just trying to find what's the simplest duct tape solution we can fit in to get what we want out the door really quick, right? To iterate on our product and all that. And unfortunately, I have a very good team of engineers who are helping out me out with that to build that duct tape system, and they are very good duct tape builders. So I'm very fortunate in that sense. But yeah, I have to learn to control myself and not let that perfectionist take over and be and accommodate that imperfection. The second point. I think the third point, which is something Catherine, I think she's not here, but Catherine mentioned, is learning to delegate, and that's something I learned a lot from my co-founder as well. She keeps reminding me that I shouldn't be doing everything myself, because I've been doing tech, I've been a software engineer on and off for almost 20 years. Right, and so a lot of things I'll be like, it's all in my head and it's easier if I do it. I don't want to explain it to someone, and then after that what I get back is totally different from what I imagined. That feeling sucks. But I think over the last 5-6 months I've learned to just trust people, let them do the work. Sometimes it comes back terrible, but that is the way things are, right? Because you might develop a product in one way and then give it to the users and they come back with like weird ways of using it. So it's the same thing with giving out work or working with someone else. They might envision it in a different way from you. So, but ultimately you must trust them and let them do their job. That's what you're paying them for, right? So that's to learn to delegate, and that's something that I think one of the biggest things I've learned in the last 6 months. Learning to delegate, and nowadays like 3/4 of the code base is unfamiliar to me. I sometimes go through the code base and I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting. So I didn't write that, but that's like something I wouldn't have thought of. And it's like I'm learning something new every day. Yeah. So that's interesting. Learning to delegate. So I think today's a pretty short session. So these 3 things I learned about transition, and then I guess one of the things that I wanted to talk about was also the differences between the startup community in Singapore and in the Valley. I think one of the main big difference between the startup ecosystem in the Valley and practically anywhere else in the world, I would say. Outside of the Valley, maybe you Seattle and Los Angeles, where it's a bit more mature, is that most of the startup ecosystems elsewhere is quite immature. It's quite young. It's very young. So with it comes its own set of problems. So back when I was in Singapore, I worked with a lot of startups. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of So that I guess with a mature ecosystem like San Francisco, there are a lot of best practices that are already going on. Like, there are certain ways to do certain things, but this type of best practices aren't necessarily transferred or existence in other places like Singapore. Singapore is still pretty young in that sense. Our startup community basically got started maybe 6-7 years ago. So there are not the kind of experienced engineers. You can't really find experienced engineers, software engineers, or program managers, or entrepreneurs in Singapore. Everybody is still trying to figure out themselves from scratch. Occasionally, you might have people coming back from overseas, but that's not common. So one of the stark differences I found when I came here was that so our startup was very fortunate. We got accepted at Y Combinator. That when the first day we were there, they basically gave us this 100-page manual. Go read it, read it and do everything in it, right? And in that manual, basically it's everything that teaches you how to set up a company, how to pay your employees, what's a good amount to pay, what to think about when paying people, how to pitch a company. Share about 3 sentences. First sentence says this, second sentence says this. They give you the template. So like all these things really is very, very helpful. Right? For me as a first-time entrepreneur, it's good to know there are like some guidelines I can follow, that I don't have to figure it out myself, and don't have to go through the trial and error to figure out what's the right thing to do and whatnot. But I don't think there's such a thing in Singapore or practically anywhere else in Asia, I would say. Yeah, so that's one of the very big differences I see. One of the biggest things that I've learned, and I'm actually very amazed by being a startup in the Valley. I guess another related point will be the deep talent pool in the Valley. You get over here, you basically have spoiled for choice to hire for engineering. Okay, spoiled for choice is a relative term, yeah. Because over here, it's expensive to hire engineers, but you get a lot of good engineers. The problem is only whether you can afford them or not, and whether you can sell them on your vision, which is a different set of problems on its own. Whereas in Singapore, it's hard to find good engineers. Good engineers, people with experience are either founders themselves, or they are working in comfortable jobs, or at a very big company, big startup, like a unicorn startup. Right? So, and those are quite few and rare in between. Most software engineers in Singapore are probably 3 to 5 years out of school, so they are not as experienced as you might need for some of your work. So that is kind of a problem that we have in Singapore. But I mean, that is a problem that can't really be solved, and you only get better over time, right? You have a bit better ecosystem, and people get more experience. But for me, I guess that the youth of that startup ecosystem is sort of it's an advantage in itself. There are not that many companies past the Series B stage in Singapore, and a lot of companies are in the pre-seed, seed stage, Series A stage, and this is actually to me where I feel where the most exciting work is being done. Once you're of a certain size, there's for me coming to the startup community, working on my own startup. So before a little backstory. So before this, I worked a lot with startups. I was a consultant, kind of like a freelance consultant, and what I enjoy working in startups because of the kind of autonomy, the kind of freedom and direction you get to do. So it's to me it's like a mix between being entirely research, but also you get the kind of flexibility in research, but in this case something that's actually relevant that people really want. Right? So for me, that is the main allure of working at a startup, and now I end up co-founding with my partner the startup. It's exciting. So yeah, and then the backup point that there are not many many big startups in Singapore, and it's exciting. I think the last thing I wanted to mention about the difference between Singapore and the States is the risk-taking culture for entrepreneurs. I think as a point that Katharina I mentioned a few times, that founding your own startup is not a very glamorous thing, in the sense that people, a lot of the middle-aged generation in Singapore still view it as sort of a risky thing that you shouldn't be doing. Only young people do it. Or someone in your 30s shouldn't be doing a startup. Right? You're too old for that. Right? I think it's probably slightly better in Singapore compared to say China, where the traditional mindset is a lot more ingrained. But there's still a bit of that mindset around, and this kind of cultural bias is something that as a founder in Singapore, you probably have to grapple with for a couple more years before the ecosystems become more mature and people get the idea that being an entrepreneur, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to fail. Right? It's still a reasonably decent job given the amount of government support we have right now. So that's actually helpful. I think actually that's more or less of what I wanted to share today. But then I open this up as a Q&A. You can ask me anything about whatever. Yeah.
One of the things on my mind regarding healthcare is the rising cost of healthcare. I was wondering how your startup will reduce costs of the healthcare provider available. So it's like the bigger picture of other parts of the ecosystem, like with pharmacies, with manufacturers of drugs. I work in pharmaceuticals personally, and I would say, for example, for HIV drugs, it will cost $7,000 to $10,000 a year for those pills. It's not including visits to the doctor, not including blood tests. It's wondering just how your idea will reduce costs.
Right. So I guess what we are focused on right now is really helping doctors becoming more productive and efficient. Right. So I think the rising healthcare cost problem is a problem in a lot of developed countries right now, and it's not a problem. It's not a thing that we are trying to tackle with our app. Whereas we are more of trying to actually get good healthcare into the hands of patients through doctors. So doctors are our first point of target. We want to empower them to let them provide better healthcare. And in a lot of developing countries, this bare minimum is not actually being met. Patients have to spend a long time, and then getting care from doctors who are under-supported and under-provided, right? So at the very least, if we can get a good basic minimum of healthcare to these people, and then maybe we can start thinking about the higher order problems like cost and market economics.
I have two questions. Sorry.
Sorry.
We didn't discuss the questions beforehand.
Have you
Yeah,
lived
that's
for 4 years?
I'm unapologetic. I have two questions. First one. So when I interned in Singapore at a statutory board at a government once, and we focused a lot on innovation, on grants for startups, things like that. So can I hear more about what is it now? Because that was 8-9 years ago when I was there. What kind of funding do you get from the government? What kind of support you were talking about? That's question number one. I'll do question number two when you're.
I mean, for the grant side, I'm not that familiar with it, but from what I've heard from talking to people, there are probably government grants for different levels of startups right now. So I think the main ones are, so most of them have the similar sort of structure where typically it's a dollar for dollar matching with an existing VC or existing accredited angels. So, and they have it at different levels, like the Series B level, Series A level, C level. So most of the government funding have this sort of criteria. There's also a bit of a focus on deep technology where they're willing to take riskier bets on deep technology. Yeah. So
I guess a follow-up question to that. I mean, it's 1B, part 1B. So what kind of support are you getting that if it's not government? Do you have other like a lot of investors who will invest in you, or what is it like in Singapore?
Free office spaces.
You get free off.
Sorry, I'm really focused. There are a lot of minute things that are really useful, like free office spaces and all that. You save like a couple $100.
Free garage space.
Hopefully.
Where do you get free office spaces from?
So the government provides them in Singapore.
Oh, okay.
And actually, we have office in San Francisco City from the Singapore government as well.
Really?
Lots of
Tell us more about that.
It's just free co-working space. There's really not much to talk about.
Is it through an organization, Overseas Singaporean Unit, or what?
Yeah, through the EDB.
So
So this is very Singapore specific, but so the Singapore government has a few sort of venture capital arms in the States, in San Francisco, where they invest in companies and all that. And so they also have their own co-working space where their offices are. They open up a bit of it for co-working, and so they provide office spaces for startups under 5 people.
Why do you have a garage if you have free open? Sorry, I
Is
totally
it
went
open?
out.
Okay, because we also live in a house. So it's actually relatively cheap for 5 people, including office.
Okay. So you're not just renting, just
Yeah, we're not
okay,
renting,
okay.
Just for the
They have a picture of them in the garage though. Just,
Oh, really?
yeah.
I feel like it has to be in a garage if you're going to be successful someday.
Well, we're thinking like, because we need to look for a place for 5 people, and then the city is probably a bit harder for that. So it's easier out in the suburbs.
Okay. And then my second question is, you talk about how you are trying to delegate more work to your employees and how you find they actually do really good work without you envisioning that. So how exactly are you hiring? Because it sounds like the employees are very important, right, for your startup. How are you hiring? What are you looking for in these employees to pick the right people that you can delegate work and trust?
This is an interesting question.
Are they from Singapore or are they from the
They're
US?
from Russia.
From Russia.
Tell them about it.
Oh yeah, I think what our startup has done is maybe a bit different from others Valley startups. Is we started, me and the co-founders, when we started this, we had full-time jobs. So there was no time to really build it ourselves. So we hired freelancers to work, contract workers to work for us. And I think that was an interesting experience of its own. To be honest, we went through at least 30 people before we got to what we have right now. So the freelance market is there's a big variance out there. But we ended up with these 3 Russian developers from Russia who happen to be from the same city in Siberia, which is awesome. But hiring has been quite tricky, like even whether it's in Singapore or whether it's in the States, it's something I'm learning to do. I think the main challenge is really as a small company, like right now, we have barely a product, we have only a bit of a seed funding. It's hard to convince people that, hey, this is going to be an awesome thing and you should come work for us for 10% of what you used to get. Right? So, yeah, that is particularly a challenge. And generally, I mean, so that's been a challenge. And then, so basically, I'm still trying to figure this out, like how do you convince people to work for you with so little to start with. And I haven't figured that out yet, but when I do, I'll
Well, before that, you said you went through 30 freelancers and
Yeah.
get to these 3. So how did you pick these 3? I mean, I guess that's a way to
by
figure it out.
attrition, right? Like
Attrition.
Are there some
they
common
go through, and
characteristics?
then if they're good, you keep them, and then hold on to it, and then just continue looking for the next one.
So what is keeping them with your startup?
I think that's your 4th question.
I understand you're his sister, but that's not how
You can talk to him later.
Sorry about that.
I have a question back. Hey, I'm sorry.
No, you
So, I feel like since you have experience with a startup in Singapore and now you're working on a startup here, if you do a startup in health tech, it seems like you're better off to do it in Asia because there's like less data privacy laws.
Yes,
So, like,
exactly.
what's your decision to start this in the US?
Actually, we are based in Singapore.
Oh,
Only here for the accelerator, Y Combinator, for
Okay.
these 3 months, and then we are going back because our target market is really the emerging markets, developing countries, which Singapore is sort of at the center of Southeast Asia.
Got it. Cool.
But recently we found that a lot of users are from Latin America, so it's an interesting thing we observed.
I'm kind of curious, so in Asia, where would you say is the sort of the main entrepreneur hub where people have this kind of entrepreneur mindset? Well, because I lived in Taipei for 2 years, and I remember when I first lived in Taipei, I think I was like 23 at the time, and I was relating this story of doing my own startup to a lot of people there, and I was hanging out with people from like some of the top universities, right? And I was just really surprised that even just some of the just smartest people in Taipei, like they don't really have this concept of like starting their own thing, and in fact. What they told me was that the best students usually don't start their own thing because like if they're smart and they do well academically, it's so hard to get into the top university already that their parents just expect them to go do a PhD, right? So it's sort of like their path is already drawn for them. And so what they told me basically was that a lot of times, like the kind of like basically if you don't test into the best universities, then you're much more likely to start your own thing. That's what I was told. And so even, so that's actually a big reason why I moved to San Francisco. I made a conscious decision to move here because of the people I meet here, and sort of the mentality that it sort of fosters, right? But at the same time, I understand that Singapore is pretty entrepreneurial in terms of like the way they run the government, right? I mean, it's very, you were telling me about like how the government has a very entrepreneurial mindset when it comes to its like public policies and everything, right? So, I don't know what my question is, but basically my impression of Singaporeans is that they're very entrepreneurial in their mindset, but then my experience of at least Taipei was not quite the same, right?
I think that my experience in Singapore is quite similar to what you have in Taipei. I would say the government is trying to encourage entrepreneurial behavior, but the cultural mindset is still pretty ingrained. And so that in itself would require time to change. You're right in the sense that and if you are the good students who get into good schools, I mean it's a decision between getting a $10,000 a month job at a big company or with a stable career path versus going to a startup where your life is less certain and you don't get paid as much. It's a decision that is quite hard to make, I would say. But in the recent years, actually, like the last 3 years, 4 years, I have a lot of friends who got tired of their jobs in like the big companies and decided to come out on their own. And I think this is in part has to do with the sort of mindset change. So in the last few years, we had a few big unicorn startups popping up in Southeast Asia. So like Grab, Taxi, there's like Garena, which is a gaming company. Lazada, which is a big e-commerce thing in Singapore, things like that, and people are being more aware of these things, and it's sort of less of I would say a cultural stigma to work at a startup, right? So that is helpful, but I think in the short term, there's still a bit of that cultural bias around. Yeah.
And is the government doing things actively to change that culture in some way?
Well, there's only so much that the government can do, right? Like just besides providing money, providing space, besides providing economical support, and just trying to make it easier for people to go into to become entrepreneurs. That's really the rest is really up to people to change. You need time for that change to happen.
I can jump in here for a little bit. So I was at Stanford before, and they had a collaboration program with a university in Singapore called National University of Singapore. It's called the NOC program, National Overseas College. And they have people who are entrepreneurial, or students who are interested in startups, the startup culture. They come over to Stanford, take classes in entrepreneurship. They work part-time at a startup and while taking classes. And then afterwards, they go back to Singapore and they can bring their ideas and the mindset from here back to Singapore. So that is a collaboration program. And I think they have that with China as well. It's a three-way program.
Well, what's the draw for them to go back to Singapore versus just staying here?
There are students there, so to graduate, you have to go back. Some people don't want to graduate, they just give up that degree and just stay here and work. Some of my friends actually went back and graduated with a degree, came back and worked for the startup full time. things like that.
So speaking on that, I actually know the intern for that program that was here this past year.
Yeah.
The year before that. And I asked him, like, now that you're here, now that you've seen this culture, do you want to stay here? And he actually said no. He said that even though he working here, interning here, he's learned so much, and he's been exposed to so many more variety of people. He said that like it's been really, really difficult for him to come here as a foreigner, and at the end of the day, there's such a big cultural clash. But he was like, I've learned so much. I want to take this back and start like telling my friends and like exploring what we can do over there. Yeah.
Exactly. So like these 2 years, I would say, most of the startups in Singapore are actually founded by people who studied and lived overseas, like in the States specifically.
Yeah, because I think there's that. I think the Singaporean government has this like sense of belonging and all that. And then the people who come here, they just couldn't find that sense of belonging here. That's why they would go
It also
home.
helps that Asia is like a rising thing now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it's-
More opportunities.
Yeah, there are a lot more opportunities. So people are starting to see that, between Silicon Valley and Asia, the differences is not that big. Right? So that's not really a big loss to go back. Yeah. Whereas 5-10 years back, going back to China or Singapore would mean a big downgrade, and you're just like alone.
He actually said the number one thing he learned from the startup he was working for, because I was in the same office as him, and he said that he realized like, man, I always thought like starting a company was super hard. You had to know exactly what you're doing, what the product was. You had to be like everything right with your world and with your professional life. And he said, but I realized working with the CEO that that's not true. And he realized, everyone like the company's doing well, but man, like so many things they don't know what. Like he doesn't always know what he's actually doing. They pivoted probably 6 or 7 times in the 1 year that he was there, and he was like, yeah, like that's kind of encouraging to see. Also crazy.